Road to Liberty listeners, we're joined tonight by Mark Whitney. And for those of you who do not follow LP politics, and I can't blame you, he is running for the presidential nomination on the LP ticket. Hello, Mark.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Going pretty good. I guess let's start off. Tell our listeners a little about yourself. Maybe they'll be interested in following the LP presidential race. If they're interested, tell us your background, a little brief background. And
yeah, my name is Mark Whitney, and I am the only reason to follow the LP presidential race. There is no other reason unless you can't sleep and don't like warm milk. But I'm the guy that's stirring the shit and shaking everything up. And I'm the guy who's debating and asking questions and causing controversy. It's not my intention to cause controversy. It's all principled. I am CEO of thelaw.net. It's a company I started 20 years ago in response to an experience I had with the government 30 years ago, in which I was thrown into a cage for lying to a bank. I successfully litigated my way out, beat the Department of Justice like a rented mule 3 times. That would be the largest law firm in the world. I'm a high school graduate. I turned myself into a constitutional scholar. I also beat the IRS down from $1 million to $20,000 representing myself. Again, that was about 30 years ago. But this company I started, the purpose of it is to put all of the law, federal and state, from coast to coast on the desktops of attorneys in small offices who are doing criminal defense, DUIs, divorce, bankruptcy. That way they can compete with the state and federal governments that they're litigating against. So the company is literally a byproduct of the 14th Amendment, which calls for equal access to equal protection of the law and access to justice for all citizens. And that's exactly what my software does.
So without your software, I mean, how would somebody get that information? It's available to the Fed and state level, but regular Joes can't get it?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can get it. You just go to thelaw.net and you can download the software and use it for $50 a month.
So otherwise, I mean, how do people get access to that? How do people get access to that otherwise?
How would they get access to it otherwise?
Yeah.
Well, it's the answer to that question is that everything that I sell is available for free, and everything my multi-billion-dollar international competitors sell, they sell the same information at a much higher price. It's available for free, but it doesn't. It's not knowledge. So the information, right? The cases exist at court websites for free, but unless you take the case law and turn it in a database and make it searchable, it's impossible for an attorney to turn it into knowledge, right? In order to give you advice.
Sure.
So we got about 7 million federal and state opinions that are in that database. We update it on a next business day basis so that it's current. So that if someone gets pulled over for a DUI, you go to your lawyer, and the lawyer is going to tell you what to do, and they have to look at the judicial opinions that have construed that DUI statute in your state to be able to advise you. So we provide that information on a federal and state level to folks. Yeah.
Sure. So how did you stumble into the LP party? Was there a meeting going on and you went in the wrong door? Or
yeah,
what?
I'm going to just adjust these earphones and then I'm going to answer you. They're just driving me crazy.
Sure.
Beep, 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 beep. So yeah, in 1982 was the first year I heard the word libertarian. I was working TV in Boston. I was 22 years old. TV was on the 3rd floor. I worked there with a young Bill O'Reilly, who was a douchebag then, knew what he wanted to be at a young age. And on the 5th floor was a guy named Gene Burns. He ran for the LP presidential candidate as a candidate in 84. He was this great talk show host, and he hosted a show 3 hours a day. He was openly libertarian. And the question he asked at the beginning of every show is, what is the nature and role of government in a free society? And at the end of every show, he would end it by saying, the Gene Burns program is brought to you by a by a grant from the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. So when I heard this guy talking, Gene Burns, I thought, wow, that sounds a lot like 9th grade civics to me. So Gene and I became friends, and that's when I first heard the word libertarian. I first ran for office in '96 in Vermont. I've served on the Vermont Libertarian Committee, the San Diego Libertarian Committee, the California Executive Committee. I was an at-large member of the National Committee for a hot minute. And then there was some corruption in the California party. What I felt were some felonies being committed, and given my background with the government from 30 years ago, I had to distance myself from that. So I separated myself for about 10 years. I tried running unaffiliated with any party in September to see what I could get going on my own, always with the plan B of running as a libertarian. And so I registered to run as a libertarian in December. And since I've showed up at the debates, the analytics on the YouTube videos for the debates are through the roof. More and more people paying attention to the Libertarian Party, the Libertarian presidential campaign. And that's because of me. Before I showed up, nobody was paying attention to it.
So what made you want to get involved in running for president under the Libertarian Party?
Well, the Libertarian Party is the last best hope for the United States. It has a 4-page platform that embraces explicitly the Bill of Rights, which I support. And we are going to have a president on November 3rd. I don't think it should be a Republican or a Democrat. I think that president should be a libertarian. The Libertarian Party has ballot access. I was telling before we went on the air, I got a message from somebody running to be the Libertarian Party chair, wondering if sent to my campaign manager. The message was, hey, would Mark be willing to throw $5,000 into getting ballot access in Connecticut? Because, you know, I've got a little money. I'm not Mike Bloomberg, but I got a little money. You know, if you put $10,000 into your presidential race as a libertarian, people accuse you of being fucking Mike Bloomberg. That's what they do. You know, it's like a bad thing to spend money to try to win an election. So anyway, the answer to the question about the $5,000 right now is no, because the Libertarian Party doesn't know what to do with ballot access when it has it. We have ballot access in all 50 states to the fucking Oval Office, and they don't know what to do with it. Right now, they're thinking about nominating a guy, my friend, my brother. I call him my brother. I mean it. My brother, Adam Kokesh, who has promised to take a false oath and unconstitutionally collapse the federal government. That's what he wants to do. And the other guy is Jacob Hornberger, who I proved in Iowa cannot make Donald Trump his bitch. I will make Donald Trump my bitch. That's the show everybody wants to see, and that's why I should be the nominee.
But before you can make anybody your bitch, you got to be able to get on the debate stage, and to do that, you got to win the Libertarian Party nomination.
Correct.
So, how do you think you've been doing so far? Have you seen a lot of support in the LP? You've been talking to delegates to see how are you doing on that?
I have a lot of shadow support right now. It's very controversial to openly support Mark Whitney because it turns out that down in Florida, it's not the Libertarian Party of Florida, it's the Authoritarian Party of Florida. And when you stand up for free speech in Florida, free political speech, people shit themselves. So
I'm going to have to tell you not to curse on this show, please.
You can't curse yourself, all right? Go fuck yourself. Yeah, I'll fuck you up if you tell me that. What I'll do. I know people. I know people who will fuck you up. Okay.
Oh, God.
I was in federal prison. I work for mobsters. I'm a fucking gangster. I'm telling you right now, I'll fuck you up.
You're telling me you know Hillary Clinton is what you're saying right now.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. That's actually a pretty good
Ben, I'm telling you right now, I do not feel suicidal.
Yeah, what's that? You dropped out. Go ahead. Repeat what you just said. Something about suicidal.
I do. I am not suicidal. So if I end up shot in the back of the head, it's Mark, not me. Mark did it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, you're actually all I have are my words, right? Because my brother Adam and I share the same civil disability that 25 other citizens share, which is, you know, because we have an old felony conviction, we can't have a firearm. That's why my words are so important to me. You know, my ability to use the First Amendment to access the courts, to stand up to the government, even from prison as a high school graduate with a typewriter, you know, that changed my life, man. When you beat the federal government and you've been sitting in prison for 452 days and you get called to the lieutenant's office and he says, I understand you're going home. And I don't even know. I'm looking over my shoulder to see if he's talking to me. And I'm like, yes, that is correct. I'm going home. I'm going home. That's what I'm doing. I didn't even know I'd won my appeal and got my sentence declared unconstitutional. So, you know, having access to words allows me to create companies. It allows me to support my family. It allows me to think freely with a blank sheet of paper without having to edit myself beforehand. So what happened down in Florida is I called Mother Jacob a motherfucker in an interview because I needed to solve my name recognition problem because I've been out the last 15 years converting Democrats and Republicans to libertarianism. I don't waste my time talking to libertarians. They agree with me. I talk to Democrats and Republicans in theaters all over the country when I perform my show Fool for a Client. I like to do things that are hard. So I go in and I spend the first hour setting them up I spend the second half hour artfully making them feel very guilty for their authoritarian lives, and they walk out of the theater in tears after standing ovation for the libertarian life story I have to tell them.
Here's something I like that you're doing with your campaign is you're not afraid to point out to other candidates that look at this stupid shit, like what Arvin Vohra says,
right?
Or like coming up in the you mentioned Philadelphia. You know, Adam Kokesh, he's going to dissolve the government, even though would take an oath to uphold the Constitution.
Correct.
So, what other stupid shit would you like to point out about your other candidates?
You know, so here's the thing. I owned a comedy club for several years, right? I've been a stand-up comic for 15 years. I tour. I've written 3 90-minute plays that I tour in independent theater festivals throughout North America and the UK. So I've been on my feet a long time, but the experience with the comedy club and my many years of experience in Toastmasters. So this is my assessment of my opponents, with the exception of Jacob Hornberger and Adam. They just need more time on their feet, okay? So when Jo Jorgensen brings notes on stage to read her name to you, those notes are a teddy bear. She's bringing those notes up because she needs something to hang on to. You see, it's the same thing, you know, when people bring props on stage in a presidential debate. They need those props because they're not comfortable being who they are on stage. So Vermin is one of the freest performing artists I've ever seen on stage. And I've seen solo artists all over the world in theater festivals all over North America. He's one of the most beautiful artists to watch perform. He does know who he is on stage as an artist. But one of the things I've noticed, I mean this as constructive criticism, when Vermin gets a laugh, and he gets more laughs than anybody, and he gets bigger laughs than anybody, and more consistently than anybody, but when he gets the laugh, he feels like his work is done. And I'm just sitting there kind of cheering him on and saying, God damn, Vermin, if you could just pivot and have something as profound to say about the question on the table and be as good at that as you are as getting a laugh, you would actually be the nominee, you know? You would be the nominee. No one would care about that boot. If you could be as profound on the issue as you are getting laughs. So they just need more time on their feet. So the reason there's so much cognitive dissonance right now is that, to me, winning the nomination is not a thing. It's not a thing. It's only a thing within our club. It's the same thing with Toastmasters. Toastmasters has a contest every year called the World Championship of Public Speaking. And 30,000 people enter that contest every year. And every year they crown a world champion of public speaking. Can any of you name a world champion of public speaking?
No.
Exactly. And nobody in the real world can name a single libertarian candidate for president. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. So if you win the World Championship of Public Speaking in Toastmasters, what you get to do is Toastmaster clubs will fly you to their club to speak for free. That's the reward. And I've not seen one world champion of public speaking be able to convert it to a career where they actually get paid to speak. I used to get paid to speak at Microsoft for $10,000 a day in 1996. I go down to Apple the next day and get another $10,000. I generated over $5 million in revenue from 1996 to 1999, just running my mouth at private sector companies, teaching them how to use the internet for competitive intelligence to poach employees from each other. So I'm a professional. So what people are seeing right now is a real leader, and the cognitive dissonance that the party is experiencing right now is they don't realize that the best candidate for president in 2020 from any party is Mark Whitney. And that's the management issue I have. So if I take this face and my wallet and my beautiful first family that looks like they were manufactured at the First Family Factory, if I take them to the Democrats and Republicans, they would love to have me run. The problem is I'm a libertarian, so I'm stuck with this party. So I got to drag them kicking and screaming into the big time, and that's what I'm going to try doing over the next 10 weeks. I'm going to do the best I can to give them the leadership that I know they so badly want. And LP stands for Libertarian Party. It could stand for the little party that could, or the little party that can't. I don't know. In my house, can't means won't. That's what can't means won't in my house. My sons say can't. I say can't means won't.
Well, and I think you're going to, did you go to any of the prior conventions?
I've never been to a Libertarian Party national convention. That's why I have Boomer Shannon and Michael Pickens work.
Oh,
I think we lost him.
stand by, people.
Mark Whitney has dropped from the feed. Apparently, he has to press a button to get back into. Oh, wait,
$3,000 cannon.
We got him.
Camera doesn't do that shit. They're the mafia. Cannon is. Everybody's the mafia. Everybody's a fucking gangster, right? Here we are.
Absolutely. All right.
All right. I'm back. Yep.
So you're going to find a bigger collection of political cosplayers that you've never seen before at an LP convention.
Right.
And so I'd like to know, I mean, maybe you don't want to tip your hand, but what's your plan to win over those people that have no idea what real politics is?
Well, the nominee is going to be Hornberger or Kokesh or me. That's who it's going to be. It's going to be one of the three best public speakers. That's how these things go. And so, in my opinion, I mean this with love, okay? I'm running against boring and batshit. That's what I'm running against, right? That's what I'm running against. And so, Hornberger is great at spewing venom about the administrative state and the corporate state that everybody hates. And I agree with everything Hornberger says, but he can't sell it. So what I'm trying to get libertarians to think about is what the media is, what the national media is going to see the morning after the nomination. If they look at Hornberger, they're not going to see a threat. They're going to see White House counsel. They're going to interview the guy for 5 minutes. He's going to put them to sleep. And the market window for 2020 is going to close in about 24 hours. The same thing will happen with Adam. And the headline will be on the New York Times, because the Wall Street traded media always wants to marginalize the Libertarian Party. So here's what the headline is going to be. Libertarian Party nominates a guy who wants to repeal the Second Amendment. Because that's what he's proposing. That is included within his proposition. And that's what they're going to do. And then they'll write that betrays the Libertarian National Party platform. And that'll be it for the Libertarian Party. The market window closes in 24 hours. So by lighting up Florida, by lighting up Hornberger in Iowa and proving that he can't make Trump his bitch, I'm trying to show people what's needed to keep the lights on through the summer, all the way to November 3rd. I'm the guy that lights shit up. I've proven that. I'm the most loved and most hated libertarian in the United States right now. So it's not that I'm in character. I'm trying to show people the attitude that's needed to get the country excited about cheering on the idea of Mark Whitney on stage with Statler and Waldorf, these two Flomax pumped up, guys who are one burger away from dropping dead on stage, Biden and Trump, or Sanders and Trump. It doesn't matter. You put me on stage with those two guys, there's a stark contrast. And I'm fucking funny, and I'm irreverent, and everybody in America wants to see that show. If they get to see that show that they want, tens and hundreds of millions of people are going to hear the message of peace and prosperity. I can chant principles with the best of them. I try not to insult people's intelligence by doing that. I'm trying to get them to focus on the strategic marketing opportunity that exists for the party this year that will never exist again. They're nominating, the major parties are nominating two fossils. And I'm like a mainstream guy that believes in free speech and the Second Amendment and privacy and equal protection of the law. And I'm an entrepreneur. My entire family makes all their money from the private sector. We hate fucking banks. We hate the government. There's nothing I like better than fucking with the fucking government. And half the reason I'm running is for revenge. I mean, what the fuck more do people want?
Well, this is something I need to ask all presidential candidates, because the fact of the matter is there's a lot of candidates, a lot of things move around. A lot of times what happens is the establishment candidate ends up with the nomination because there's just way too many radicals running. Right? That's how Bill Weld got it. That's how Gary Johnson got it. But the thing is that a lot of candidates, when they don't get the nomination, they drop off the face of the earth. We never hear from them again.
Yes.
Right? This happens a lot of times. Right?
Correct.
So it happened with Austin Peterson. It's happened with Bill Weld. It's probably going to happen with Lincoln Chafee, though I don't think a lot of people are going to miss them.
I've sat next to Lincoln in several debates, and I will just represent to you, based on my observations up close, that this poor bastard just wants this to be done. He just wants it to be done so he can go back to Wyoming. He just wants it to be over.
No, I was at that debate in Des Moines, and he was the most uncomfortable man in that room.
Yeah,
sitting up on that stage.
I think you can tell by the unvarnished honesty of his answers. He's sitting in a room of libertarians. He knows that the correct answer is to say decriminalize all drugs. He knows that's the correct answer. But he doesn't say that. He says what he believes, which is, I want to win elections. Well, that's the wrong answer in that room. That's the wrong answer. He knows it, and he doesn't give a fuck. He's going to just answer what he believes. So you got to respect that.
Well, I mean, in a way, but what I don't, it's not so much that he said that, it's the way he said it was just completely pathetic. No, he looked like a beat puppy, is what he looked like. Right? He looked like a guy who was expecting to walk into the LP and be handed the nomination because he's Lincoln Chafee, and since he's not getting that, now he has to deal with all these crazy people who want to legalize methamphetamines. Right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that it was probably easy to sell him on the idea of running because for the last 12 years, like you said, the party has nominated certified pre-owned Republicans, you know, but they don't need to do that this year. I'm here. Okay. I'm libertarian. I'm spending my money. I've pledged that I'm going to be here to help this party for 10 years. I've pledged that I'm going to file to run for president again on November 4th, the day after the election. I have demonstrated as best I can by donating money and investing my own time and money and my body in running for office and in standing for the principles that are embraced by this platform. It would be much easier if I was a person who had the lack of character, like say Andrew Yang, right? I think Andrew Yang's got a libertarian streak, and I think he did the practical thing to run as a Democrat and reverse engineer himself with his idea of giving everyone $1,000. I don't think he believes that for a fucking minute. I think he definitely is libertarian in a lot of ways. You know, he hangs out with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk says give everyone $1,000 a month because Elon Musk knows that the eyes are on billionaires. Of course Elon Musk wants the government to subsidize losers. Of course he does. He doesn't want to have to do it himself.
So are you going to support the eventual nominee, or are there certain candidates that you just flat out wouldn't support?
I'll support the eventual nominee, and it won't make a fucking difference. It won't make a fucking difference, because if you don't nominate me, it's lights out 24 hours after Austin. And I feel so strongly about this. There may be two libertarians running for president. There may be one with the large L, who is the nominee, and one with the lowercase l, who just keeps running anyway. Because I keep banging. I don't give a fuck what people say. No one's going to stop me from getting out the right message. And the right message is that these Democrats and Republicans have got to be stopped. This rogue government has got to be stopped. And a libertarian president solves a lot of problems for this party. And the most libertarian office in all of America is the presidency. That's the easiest sale to make. You just need somebody who understands that, nominate them, and I'll fucking rock this country upside down. I'll get on every late night show. I know all these people. I'll do 5 minutes of killer stand-up. I'll whip out my incredible Trump impression. It'll be unbelievable. And they won't even believe what's going on. They'll be like, what the fuck is this guy? And all the talk late night hosts will love it. I might get to host SNL, and people will be clamoring for me to be on the debate stage with Donald Trump. And if I am up there, I will make him my bitch, because he's a fucking open mic comic. If you were to put him on the Late Show at the Comedy Store up on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, he would take a shit on stage. You would hear crickets. He wouldn't be able to get a laugh. He works in very controlled environments. And I know open mic comics when I see it, because I had a comedy club for 4 or 5 years. He's an open mic comic. Watch my show Fool for a Client. Donald Trump can't do that. Donald Trump cannot walk into a room of hostile people like I do as a libertarian, walk into a hostile room of Democrats or Republicans and convert them like I do with a show like that. He doesn't have that kind of talent.
So how much did you watch the last presidential election?
I have maintained a casual interest in the last couple of elections. And when I saw Lincoln Chafee sniffing around, and I looked at the crew of candidates, and I decided, that neither the Democrats or the Libertarians have anybody who can make Trump their bitch. The question I asked Jacob in Iowa is the only question any libertarian should be asking. Who among these candidates can make Donald Trump their bitch? That's it. We all know what everybody thinks about drugs and wars and trade and the Fed. We know those fucking answers. Why do we have to, 10 of us stand there, one after the other, and express fealty to these principles? We could just all do it as a group, right? Raise our right hand, do it as a group, and then talk about how to beat this motherfucker.
Where do you think, do you have an opinion on where Gary Johnson went wrong last time, aside from Aleppo?
Well, Gary was limited in the charisma department. You know, Gary doesn't light up the stage. So on the libertarian scale of candidates, Gary was the right choice. That scale is different this year, right? I mean, there are three good speakers on that stage, me and Adam and Hornberg. But only one of us can make Trump his bitch. I'm the only one. That's why you have to nominate me. You have to make the right strategic marketing decision. So what's his name? Hornberger, Mother Jacober is great at saying things that are pleasing to libertarians. But if you take him outside his comfort zone, like I did in Iowa, and in Florida, he was shaking when I attacked him. He doesn't know what to do. He only talks to people who agree with him. That's a business model. Ask Sean Hannity. Ask Rachel Maddow. It's a great business model, you know, and he makes, you know, $80,000, $90,000 a year doing it. He's ordinary. He's plain. He's boring. The Hornbergers of the world are a dime a dozen. 40,000 of them subscribe to my software. They're a dime a dozen. There's nothing special or unique about Jacob Hornberger that is going to make the New York Times or CNN or late night sit up and take notice. It will be a non-event, and the party will lose money. It will lose exposure, and they will have blown a great opportunity because Sanders and Trump are fringe candidates. They're fringe, and Biden is fringe. Biden barely knows who the president is. You know, his teeth came loose in a debate. His eye exploded on CNN. He gets mixed up very easily. He's got dementia, and Trump has not even read the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. Similar, just like my libertarian opponents have not read it and know nothing about it. So, you know, we have a great chance to really disturb the universe if I'm the nominee. And there's nothing I like better than the good fight. And that's why I'm like, why aren't people excited about that? We have ballot access. Why aren't people owning that? Everyone claims they want to have ballot access. Well, you've got it here, right? There are three parties, right? And two choices, authoritarian and libertarian. Democrats, Republicans, authoritarian, libertarian, and one pipeline. So why aren't we leaning into that with all of our energy and all of our passion? Instead, when I do that, even my advisors say, don't do that. Don't talk about the Constitution. Don't talk about winning. You're going to upset people. Okay, so that is the height of dysfunction. That's all I can say.
Well, I mean, even if you do get the nomination, I can't envision the media's never let the libertarian candidate on stage with the other two.
The media doesn't make that decision. Here's how the media makes money. The corporate media makes money two ways. They cover the Democrats and Republicans who are boring as fuck because they have money. So they go, Pete Buttigieg, you go to Iowa and you pretend you care about the people at assisted living in Des Moines, and we'll take your picture. We'll write about you in New York Times. You raise some more money, give it to us in advertising, and then we'll do the same thing in New Hampshire. It's like the recycling logo, right? It goes on for 2 years. It's all bullshit. The parties use these candidates like tributes and then dump them to the side of the road. These candidates are not leaders. They didn't have a single leader on stage on the Democratic side, with the possible exception of Sanders. In the Democratic Party, in our party, the media, the other way the media makes money, and these Ivy League journalists who are very aggressive and they're all dreaming about a Pulitzer Prize, they see my once-in-a-lifetime libertarian story, my libertarian family, my autistic son who grew a $15 million business from nothing. They see how funny I am, how caustic I am, how I attack Trump with no holds barred, how I out-Trump Trump. They see that, and they're going to want to write about that. They're going to want to get a Pulitzer Prize, and they're going to want to make hundreds of millions in advertising doing it. And that, you know, so a great story trumps money. Mike Bloomberg spent $500 million to get 8 delegates. Money does not buy an election. But a great story will do it.
So, what's your path at this point? I guess I'm still not seeing the path. I just get the feeling that the people at the convention are going to vote for the pandering candidate. I've always said pander in the primary and lie in the general.
If they do that,
What's
they deserve what they get, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves for doing it. They deserve what they get.
I think they did in the last election. I was supporting Austin Peterson because I thought he'd be a better mouthpiece than Gary Johnson, and I think they did deserve what they get.
And that's really what it comes down to. Who is the best mouthpiece? And that makes it a no-brainer this year. Okay, there's nobody that comes close to me in terms of being a mouthpiece who's credible. What Adam's running to be tyrant. Okay, that's not okay. I mean, he's not going to be the nominee, but he could be. The amazing thing about Adam, he's such a strong speaker, and he's so charismatic, and he has, I think, a deep character. He has a tremendous following. And, if I was 35, 37, whatever he is, I'd want to burn the fucking thing down, too. After 20 years of aggressive war, after 20 years of being patted down like a criminal at the airport because you're taking business travel, after 20 years of safety and security and every question being resolved in favor of risk and against reward, I would want to burn it down too. I totally get that. My kids are 32 and 35. I get that sentiment, but I also know how to use the Bill of Rights to secure your rights. The Second Amendment stands for the proposition, right? Let's just stipulate that there are exactly 300 million people in the United States, and that you two guys are the only people in the United States that want to have a house full of guns, and everyone else is against you. The Second Amendment compels me as president to protect you from the mob. That's what it compels me to do. It's the word of the people. It is an injunction on the government to not infringe your rights. That's what it is. It compels me to defend you, and Adam wants to get rid of that, right? And in the course of overthrowing the government, what about money, right? Everybody is now broke, and people go, leave it to the states. Well, they won't be states. They'll be 50 nations. There'll be 50 nations is what they'll be. They won't be states. I like being able to travel from California to New York without having to go through a bunch of bullshit. And the reason the United States is as secure as it is because when you look at the piece of land, it's like this giant island. It's got these two gigantic oceans. It's impossible to attack the United States. The last time a U.S. citizen was killed on our soil by a nation state was the War of 1812. That's the last time. There's not been a single citizen killed by a nation state since. 9/11 was a criminal act by a criminal gang. It was not a nation state. Now, 1812 is the last time. Adam wants to throw all that out.
I've never really followed Adam much. I always thought he was kind of a kook. And actually, the last time I even looked into what he was about, he was trying to discourage people from even voting. Is that that's his real stance? Is he's going to get rid of the federal government? We're going to become a 50 nation state country? Is that he's still sticking to his guns?
His whole thesis is internally inconsistent. So, and I've been with him in many debates, and Adam and I are good friends. I say I'm friends with his right-hand man, Elijah, and there's a mutual respect there for the entrepreneurship and the energy and the passion that we bring to the stage. We respect each other for that. But, in every debate, he has this internally inconsistent thesis, which is and I'm quoting, the peaceful dissolution of the federal government. And then in response to every question, he says, leave it to the states. So which is it? I mean, I hate authority. I fucking hate authority. I hate government. I hate wife authority. I have having to fill out forms and check boxes. It drives me fucking nuts. I hate all authority. That would include the states. But Adam loves the states. He just goes, leave it to the states. So now you have every Buford T. Justice fucking you up, every time you do a slow roll through a red light. And you don't have access to Title 42, Section 1983, which is the most heavily litigated statute in the country, and allows you to bring a federal lawsuit against your local sheriff for being a dickhead. There's all kinds of benefits that we have built in to the system that are a result of the Bill of Rights. And if you look at my Facebook page, say at the top of my timeline, I put Adam on notice very respectfully about this argument I'm bringing to Philly, and I want people to appreciate the irony that in Philadelphia, of all places, that the Libertarian Party of all organizations is this weekend going to be debating whether or not the Bill of Rights should be preserved. Seriously, that's actually going to happen this Saturday. And that's how far this party has digressed, that there is such an audience for this. And it's just a matter of somebody educating. I'm like, people say you don't get your rights from a piece of paper. I'm like, correct. You and I agree. But this piece of paper is an injunction. It's a contract imposed on me as president to defend you two guys, because you're the only ones in the country who don't want to have guns, and the rest of the country is against you. My job as president is to defend you.
All right, so let's talk about an incident that happened last week in New York. So New York is a primary state. They're going to have a primary coming up very soon, and their delegates are bound. Yeah. And only Jacob Hornberger was the only LP candidate who filed the paperwork correctly there and is going to appear on the ballot.
Right. So here's exactly what happened. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So one of the first people I hired to help me out in my campaign was Michael Pickens. And one of the first things Michael said to me is, we need to get you on the ballot in New York. If you're not on the ballot in New York, that's bad for you. And I said, great, let's find out what's involved. And at that time, Vermin was the only one on the ballot. So I was like, great, maybe it'll just be me and Vermin, and we'll see how that lands. So I was all excited about it. So we found out the criteria, and the Board of Elections in New York wrote us a letter and said, this is what you have to do to get on the ballot. And we did it. We did everything they said we had to do. And then like a week after that, like it was like 3 weeks ago, we got a letter from them saying, congratulations, you're on the ballot. As did many other candidates, as did Adam, as did, like I say, many others, right? So we're all on the ballot. And then after the deadline passes, just after the deadline passes, we get a letter saying you're not on the ballot with no explanation. No explanation. So we're on the ballot. That's done. And then after the deadline passes, we just get a letter that says you're not. What kind of shit is that? I don't think they have jurisdiction to write that letter after the deadline passes. And there are mixed arguments as to how bound the delegates are. What it is so I learned today what it is you have to go out and you have to get 27 libertarians who are registered to vote in New York to agree to be your delegates. So the delegates are actually not bound, but you do have de facto control of them because they agreed to support you. So presumably they're going to support you at the convention. But technically they are available to support other candidates. But the reality of it is, Jacob probably has 27 people who he knows are going to back him up in Austin, because the guy's been around forever telling libertarians what they already believe. And people love to have stuff they believe reinforced. So he's got a lot of legacy relationships. But I don't think that it is a failure of my team. We did exactly what the Board of Elections asked us to do, and so did everybody else. But if it turns out that it is a failure on the part of my team, and Hornberger beat us on the merits because his team was more sophisticated and more aware of what needs to be done, then, as has been my practice, I will congratulate Hornberger for making me his bitch. I will do that.
So if you don't think that it was just an oversight on the part of your team or whatever the case may be, what could it have been then?
There's no way it's an oversight, and I have been involved in litigation in many cases, not just in my own cases. I had about 30 lawsuits back when I blew up my world in my 20s. But, I've worked on in many, many other cases for mobsters and gangsters. And I worked on a case where F. Lee Bailey was the lawyer, and I found a mistake he made. And the banker, this banker in Vermont hired me to keep an eye on F. Lee Bailey when F. Lee Bailey was representing OJ. And F. Lee Bailey fucked up on this guy's case. He had to write my guy a check for $500,000. So I kind of know my way around this stuff. And it doesn't, I agree with what you're implying. It doesn't pass the sniff test, because I've never seen a regulatory agency just reverse its own decision without explanation. They always provide an explanation. This is just a summary dumping of several candidates who were already approved, and then they just completely reversed themselves. And there was no paperwork filed by anybody saying that you should reverse yourself, to my knowledge. It was just something that happened. If there was legal work filed, we'll find it. But so far, we haven't been able to do that. But it's only by middle of next week, we'll know what we're going to do about this one way or the other. It may just, the pragmatic thing may be to just move along. I don't know.
Have you been in contact with the New York Election Commission to try to have they given you any sort of explanation for it?
So here's what we're doing. We're going out this weekend and we're going to get 50 libertarians registered in New York to agree to be delegates for me, 50 of them, just in case 23 of them aren't valid. And then next week, we're going to write a letter to the Board of Elections and say, you guys didn't have jurisdiction to dump us. Here are our delegates. Put us on the ballot. And if they don't do that, then I'll have to have a conversation to decide whether it's worth filing a lawsuit.
Oh, Mark, I hate to pull the plug on. I mean, we usually go for half an hour. I wasn't even watching the time. So as is usual with a good speaker, I mean, you just burn through time.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you on again. I guess closing comment. I like to say the candidate you remind me of. Have you ever watched John McAfee or any of his stuff when he was with the LP?
Yeah. He's a piece of work, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
he really is.
Yeah.
He kind of ran on the same platform that, you got to get somebody that's going to get in front of the cameras. And that's what John McAfee was saying he could do last time. And I have no doubt he could have got in front of the cameras, and he called out a lot of the bullshit going on in the LP like you're doing too.
Yeah.
So I guess my advice to you would be look at what happened with his campaign and see how you can work that to your advantage.
There are, the most important thing is to be honest and talk about, I will admit that I am the worst politician in America. And I would say that is a feature, not a bug, for the first libertarian president. Right?
If you've ever talked to McAfee, he's the most honest guy you ever fucking talk to. I tell you that.
It's true. It's true.
We're going to talk to him again next week. So, I mean, if you got time, give it a listen. But we'd love to have you on again. We'll see maybe after the convention, if you're willing, we'll get a wrap up from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
Great. Anything
Thanks
from
for
you,
having me
Nathan?
on, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to join you on your show.
Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Man. Take care. Keep banging.
Yeah, keep banging.